Good morning. Thank you for having me. I love Manchester as it is, so to be invited up here was just perfect. I'm going to give you quite a whistle-stop tour of breastfeeding in half an hour. I was just saying earlier that I expanded this talk the other day to last 6 hours. So I then had to go through and delete all these slides that I really wanted to show you, but we're going to have the sort of quick version of it. I was never meant to be a breastfeeding researcher. I was never meant to be anything to do with midwifery at all. I did a degree in psychology, I was interested in nutrition, I was interested in children, and I signed up to do a PhD, got some funding for it, actually looking at the diet of older children and parenting interactions. It was all meant to be about school-aged children. Now, I think I managed 4, maybe 5 days of that PhD before realizing I was pregnant. Not exactly planned, but what happened is it just immersed me in this world of pregnancy, birth, babies, and how they were fed. Because until that point, I didn't know anything about feeding babies. I thought you had these 2 choices, you breastfed or you formula fed. And I will honestly say I thought they were equal. I'd seen these lovely adverts on TV of smiling, laughing babies, and you just picked one or you picked the other, didn't you? And it was really, really straightforward. There wasn't any problems, you just picked it. But at that point, I was formula fed. My friends at that point were formula fed. I was fairly young, I was 23, having my first baby, which wasn't exactly planned. I also had another 2 babies during that PhD, and I think finished my supervisors off, but I did finish it. Not recommended, sorry. Don't have babies during your studies, no. But I thought, okay, I'll give this breastfeeding thing a go. It seems like a good idea. And I actually had a fairly easy time in the end. I breastfed all 3 of them for quite a long time. And although they fed all the time, I never got any sleep, it seemed exhausting, actually it went all right. But when you're a researcher, and I presume when you're a midwife or any type of health professional, women tell you their stories. As soon as you say, oh, I'm a midwife, oh, I'm a researcher, they suddenly pour everything out, or kind of feel they have to explain to you. And what I noticed when I was pregnant with that first baby and still kind of carrying on with the other PhD idea is I'd go along to baby groups. And every woman that I met seemed to have this need to tell me her story, but they kept telling me the same things. I couldn't breastfeed. I didn't have enough milk. He fed too much. He was just really unsettled. And I was in an area where the breastfeeding rates were really low, but it seemed that virtually every woman had had such a problem that they weren't able to. And I thought, well, this is a bit odd. Why on earth can women not breastfeed? Are British boobs broken or something? Has something gone wrong? Because, so I thought, right, as every good academic sort of does, they go back to the literature and they think, well, let's have a look for all these papers on why women, physiologically can't breastfeed. What is wrong with British breasts? And I didn't really find very much. What I did find with this data, and this is an updated version of it, this comes from the Lancet report on breastfeeding that was published January 2016. If you haven't read it, go and have a look at it because it's such a good series of papers there. And what the Lancet did, and I took the data from it to put it into this graph, showed that there were these huge differences in breastfeeding rates depending on where a woman gave birth. So along the top there, you've got a red line. That should be what the World Health Organization recommends. So 6 months exclusive breastfeeding can continue for as long as mum and baby want. The World Health Organization recognised that there are a very small minority of women who will not be able to breastfeed, but you're looking at very, very small amounts, very small amounts. So I've put that just under 100%. You then have countries like Ghana, and they're taking the data from Ghana, but a lot of regions in Africa, in Southeast Asia, they have very, very, very high breastfeeding rates, which don't drop off, so they carry on going. But then there's this huge difference dropping down to Western countries. There you have Norway, and there are similar rates in Denmark and Sweden, where there is much higher initiation, but not perfect, and it drops off more slowly. But then you have Australia, the USA, and you've got the UK at the very, very bottom. Now, there is no physiological reason why these differences are there. Swedish breasts, Norwegian breasts, no different to British breasts. They are exactly the same. What is different is the context. Now, what also happened, the more women I met, was their stories. It wasn't, oh, I couldn't breastfeed, it's absolutely fine, I don't care, I haven't given it a second moment's thought. It was these emotions. And this is just a quick snapshot from some research I've been doing, looking at women's experiences when they can't breastfeed and how they feel. Doing some online research, put a questionnaire up saying, do you feel distressed about your breastfeeding experience? Did you have to stop before you were ready? Over 3,000 responses in about 10 days, with women pouring out how they feel. And these same things keep coming up again and again and again. So what my research is trying to do is trying to fix this to some extent. Work out what's going on, what can we do, and how can we stop women feeling like this? Now, you've probably heard the message, breast is best, haven't you? There are posters everywhere, there are kind of sayings, you know, we tell women, don't we, you should breastfeed. Breast is best, 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 best everywhere. Absolutely useless message. For a start, breastfeeding isn't best. Best? No, it's normal. You wouldn't say that about any other health behaviour. But secondly, telling someone something's best doesn't work. We know you shouldn't smoke, you shouldn't drink too much, you should eat healthily. Do you do it all the time just because it's best? This doesn't help women. In fact, this is what happens. It keeps jumping onto this slide. I've got an increasing number of friends on Facebook who keep getting involved in these weird events at weekends where they throw themselves through the mud to get to the other side of the mud. Tough Mudder, I think they're called. And this is what I equate breastfeeding to in the UK. We put women at the start, all nice and clean, and go, come on, let's get you through this. And barrier and barrier and barrier is put in their way. Although there is another bit to it I like to see. You see these people on the left there, I see those as you, the midwives, the breastfeeding supporters, kind of pulling women out of the mud. Because we might tell women breast is best, but do we really believe that? Are we supportive of it? Are we enabling of it? And by we, I don't mean us in the room, I mean society. Society in the UK, does it really think breast is best? We did some research recently, and we did a big population survey, actually asking people what they thought about breastfeeding. And the vast majority would say, oh, breast is best, but formula is absolutely fine. It's like they were these two different things. And it's fine, yeah, breastfeeding's fine, but, you know, formula, it's okay. Just some examples of what I mean. I've shown these images quite a few times before, but I think they're quite powerful. Because we might say breast is best, but images like this, lovely photos of mums with new babies, these are actually examples friends have sent me that have been blocked from Facebook, and they've been banned for several days for being indecent. Apparently these images, according to Facebook, are indecent. No. Headlines seem familiar to you? It's like you can't open the newspapers at the moment without a headline about a mum being asked to stop breastfeeding. The one down the bottom, breastfeeding mum squirts woman who asked her to stop nursing because it was distracting her husband. It's apparently not true, but I refuse to believe that. I want to think that I know whoever that is, that it is one of my friends. But these headlines continually at women. At the one point, the NHS is saying breast is best, and they open all these newspapers, and it's headlines telling them stop. Don't do this, it's awful. You're going to get blocked from Facebook, it's indecent. We have companies helping us along. If you've been on social media, did you see all the fury over Dove? Why on earth Dove decided to jump in on breastfeeding, I don't know. But apparently they did a survey. 75% say breastfeeding in public is fine. 25% say put them away. What's your way? It's the law. You cannot stop a woman from breastfeeding in public. And Dove seem to have forgotten that. But it's that subtle message. What can you think of any other area of health where a huge company would say, smoking around small children, what do you think? Do you think we should let them do it? No, but because it's breastfeeding, apparently it's a debate. Did you see the Victoria and Albert Museum as well, that a mother got stopped She tried to latch the baby on and she got asked to cover up because, you know, standing next to statues of naked women, but oh no, it's a real life breast in front of them, they can't cope with it. This is just an example of adverts and breasts. Perfume adverts and breasts. Just a few examples. These are fine to go on Facebook. Also a trend I've been noticing the last few weeks is also burgers and breasts. Burgers and breasts. I don't know about you, but this one, that's how I always eat my burgers. Don't you? No? No? But this is absolutely fine. And the subtle message is saying is, oh, we don't want to see breasts in public. Oh, hang on, no, we don't want to see that type of breast in public. This is absolutely fine. As long as your breasts look a certain way, we want to see them. Now, I'm not saying that women shouldn't jump around in bikinis eating burgers. If they want to do that, that's fine. But you can't say this is fine and some photos of breastfeeding babies aren't. And that's a subtle difference. But this is kind of just sort of scratching the surface because breastfeeding and all the barriers that are placed in the way of women are much deeper than that. This is sort of the superficial stuff you see in the press. And as UNICEF Baby Friendly said last year now, in their call to action to change the conversation, we need to think more deeply. We need to change the conversation around breastfeeding by stopping laying the responsibility for this major public health issue in the laps of individual women and acknowledging the role that politics and society have to play at every level. Because it is far deeper than whether we just support women to breastfeed in public, whether they're just allowed to put photos on Facebook. Breastfeeding in society, it's not just about that. It's about far, far deeper stuff, about how we treat women in general, how we think and care for babies in general. And I'm going to talk about two sort of main points that we really need to think about. The first is, if we want breastfeeding rates to go up, we need to recognise and support normal newborn behaviour. Normal babies who need us, who want to be carried, who want to be cared for, who want to be close to mum. And at the very heart of this is this concept of responsive feeding. Now, I'm sure I don't need to tell you about responsive feeding and breastfeeding, but breastfeeding works best when it's done responsively. So whenever that baby wants a feed, you feed the baby. That kind of sums it up. That's going to be a lot. It's going to be at least probably every 2 hours. It's going to be through the night. Baby's probably not going to want to be put down in between. They want to be kept close. Now, we might know that, but do we accept that in society? Does UK society understand that? I mean, I've talked about this before as well, but when you have a new baby, people ask you 3 questions. So you've had your brand new baby, you've recovered a little bit, you take them out shopping. So you got to the shopping centre and you're trying to mind your own business and, you know, wheel the baby around. They come up to you. Is it a boy or a girl? Stock answer is yes. How much does she weigh? Because this is a really, really critical question, isn't it? To you, the baby that you don't know, that you've just met in Tesco's, how much does she weigh? The good response for that, if they're still kind of talking to you, is, oh, she was 7.5 pounds, how much do you weigh? But apparently, that's not acceptable. But the third one, and it's almost on cue, it's almost like people walk through the door of Tesco's and they give people a script. Go and find the newborn baby, ask their mum these questions. Is she good? Is she good? Now, what is a good baby? A good baby sleeps, a good baby doesn't need feeding much, a good baby is quiet and settled. That's not really a good baby. And the answer to that is, she's a wonderful baby. She had me up all last night telling me she needed to be fed. She won't let me put her down. She makes sure I keep her close. Because that is really what we should be kind of celebrating as a good baby, rather than this idea that you have a brand new baby and then try and fit your life so you pretend you don't. This lot, as you go around Tesco's, they're this lot of the rest of society, hipster society apparently, because they've all got these little hipster beards. But it's kind of like bingo again, and I really would. I think getting rid of those packs when a mum has a baby and give them a bingo card instead and they win some kind of prize you know, from the people around you, is he feeding again? Well, my baby sleeps all night. Are you sure you've got enough milk feeding him again? Rod for your own back. He needs a routine. You need to show him who's boss. And what these things do is they just gradually erode a new mum's confidence. You start thinking, well, should he? My midwife said to me, feed him responsibly, feed him whenever he wants feeding, but everybody else is telling me I shouldn't. He's manipulating you. This concept that a tiny baby can manipulate you. Oh, my favourite. You'll still be feeding him when he's off to university. And I'm sure any academics in the audience can attest it's a nightmare, Freshers' Week in particular. I tell you, when the parents are drawing that. But just generally, you're just doing it all wrong. Because actually, take Preston formula out of this. This is the message a lot of new mums get from society. You're not doing it the right, do it my way. This woman has lost her hair. It comes back in a minute, it's all right. It's this strange programming of this slide. But this is the impact it has on new mums. They're there, they're worrying, they've got their new baby and it's all been going so well. And then they start thinking, you know, is he really meant to be feeding again? What if I'm starving him? How do I know he's getting enough? Maybe I should try a top up. What if I'm just doing it all wrong? And we'll just give her a hair. There we go. But it's those doubts, and that's when the formula top-up creeps in. That's when she tries to extend the time in between feeds and it all starts going wrong. Is it any wonder that these are some really, really popular Google searches? I mean, I just typed these in and had a look at how many hits came up. Getting your baby into routine. 25 million hits on that of where you could go to get information in half a second. How to get your baby to sleep through the night, 40 million hits. How to make a baby more settled, 57 million hits. It's what mums are Googling at 2 a.m. when they've been told all day long that their baby shouldn't be waking at night. And is it any wonder? Poor baby ends up like this. Poor mums end up like this, feeling so miserable because they don't think they're doing it right. And we've just done some research showing the impact of trying to follow really strict advice that says your baby should sleep through the night, your baby should be in a routine. Really high link with postnatal depression. And it's unsurprising because you're taking really normal baby behaviour and telling mums that something's wrong. Now, the second thing, very strongly linked to everything else you're going to hear about today, we need to convince society to value and care for our new mothers better. Because do we? Or do we celebrate the woman who gets her life back? Because that's the pressure from the magazines, from the stories around her, from the celebrities who get back in their jeans practically before the placenta has come out. It's that pressure. And here, getting your life back after baby. How to get your groove back. 307 million hits on how to get this life back. So again, you've had a brand new baby. It all seems utterly overwhelming because you've got no support and because everyone's telling you to get that baby in a routine and he's feeding too much. So you panic and you think, well, how do I sort this out? How do I get back to normal even though we've got a brand new person in the family? And the images, if you've heard a talk from me before, you'll know about sad dad. This here is sad dad. Sad dad is very sad on the left because look at that bond between that mother and the baby. She's staring into his eyes. They're really, really bonded there, but dad's sad because dad is left out. And the second image there, sad dad is now happy. Sad dad's asleep. Mum's feeding the baby with a bottle. And you can imagine the conversation, can't you? Oh, let's move him on to formula. Let's give him a bottle, and I promise I'll do all the night feeds. But no, dad's asleep. Mum's feeding with a bottle. It's wider. This image on getting your life back, get your body back as well, because you've got to pretend you haven't had a baby. Once you've had a baby, you must look like you haven't had a baby. If men had babies, we would be celebrating stretch marks. We would be celebrating breastfeeding breasts. We would be celebrating how far you could squirt your milk. We would be celebrating all sorts. But instead, there are just countless, and it's not even, there's so many stories. Along with articles like this from The Guardian, what does the trend for smaller nipples say about us? Apparently, the latest plastic surgery you can get is to make your nipples smaller. So again, this is completely fine, but breastfeeding babies on Facebook aren't. Mother and baby magazines, How many mothers and babies look like this? Really? How bright and cheerful and smiling and clean. The babies are always kind of in these like white nappies or something, just looking really fresh. And it's all about this image. And mums are looking at it going, oh, I don't look like that. I don't look anything close to that. When it's not real. Is she really a mother? Is that really her baby? Or have they just brought two people together? Question is, knowing all of this, do we jump to mother's age and look after them? No, we make them devices instead. There's another one on the market that I read about yesterday, these bottles, which will track how much you pump into them and then how much your baby drinks and at what rate. Why? There's a perfectly good indicator of how much babies are drinking. It's nappies. It's what they look like. But the market is full of stuff like this that says to mums, right, you're overwhelmed with feeding, aren't you? You're exhausted. Let's take the really good part of cuddling your baby away from you and give you a device to do it instead. Or if you're really lucky, you can wave a giraffe in their face while you feed too. Vital. These devices as well, it's just full of them. Devices that will save you. Rather than family coming around the mum and caring for her and looking after her, devices to separate mum and baby and get baby to sleep so you can get your life back. The first one, you strap it to it and it vibrates. The other one, you straight jacket them in and it vibrates. The one down the bottom is from America. I don't think we have it yet, but you attach it to your baby's ankle and it monitors your baby in some way. And I don't know if you can read that, but it says, Austin is sleeping. He's going to awaken. You've got better eyesight than me. He's going to wake in 45 minutes. Is your baby a robot? Our baby's robots. But it's this idea that we can program them in this way. We also have these. If you're not aware of them, just clear this from your minds afterwards. But these mums who are now really worried because the whole of society has told them there's something wrong with feeding their baby every 2 hours, industry jumps on the back and says, let's create tools that will measure how much breast milk you've got. That Milk Sense one there, apparently, what you do with Milk Sense, you get your breast with one hand, you get Milk Sense with the other, and you rub Milk Sense all over your breast, and it will compute how much milk is in your breast for you. That is physiologically impossible, by the way, because it's not like the breast fills up and then empties. It's continually being produced, but still. Have a look at the logo. Does the logo remind you of anything? That milk? Cow and Gay, or SMA, I can't remember which one it is. I tried to blank this out. It's one of the formula companies who designed this machine to tell women whether they've got enough breast milk or not. Do you believe them? Would you trust them to say that she has enough milk? Mum Sense is along the same crazy lines, but with Mum Sense, rather than cuddling your baby and looking at them, you plug them in, essentially. So you put your headphones in, and you stick a little sticker dot thing behind their ear. And you know when babies' ears wiggle when they're successfully feeding? Well, what that does is it measures how much the baby's ear wiggles, and it computes then how that into milk drunk, and it sends it to your smartphone, so you can read your smartphone whilst... Happy Vitals. Happy Vitals is from the US as well, but these people are kind enough to let you send them breast milk from the UK, and they will measure what's in it for you. So the cheap version at about £300, it will tell you whether you've got fat, protein, and carbohydrate in your milk. You do, because it is milk. That is what milk contains. But for 300 quid, you can know. For a bit more vitamins and minerals in your milk, again, you have it's milk. But the more worrying one is for about 700, 800 pounds, it will tell you whether you've got toxins in your milk. Now, there are toxins everywhere. Everything has toxins in it. But if you get a report back saying your breast milk has toxins in it, are you going to carry on breastfeeding? This bottle thing that I saw the other day, they're a startup company. They're trying to raise 30 grand or something to start these bottles off. Please do not donate to them. as well as measuring how much your baby drinks and computing it, it's also going to screen your milk while it's in there to tell you whether there's any alcohol in it and any toxins in it. And it's just so dangerous and so just not needed. But this consumerist pressure on women, you need something to measure it, because as society tells you, you haven't got enough milk because your baby's not sleeping through the night. Hot on the heels of the parenting books, because mums are really isolated these days, aren't they? They often move to the other side of the country and they're not necessarily with their friends. So whereas they go down the road to their mum 30 years ago and say, what's going on? They now pick up the baby books. And the baby books, there are some good, very good baby books. There are some very, very bad baby books. I will not say live which ones I mean. But just a couple of quotes. One from Dr. Spock. Dr. Spock matters because Dr. Spock is the book of the grandparents. You still have Dr. Spock on your shelf. A lot of grandparents do. So Spock had strange ideas about feeding. They come to realise that they don't need the late night feeding, and most of them give it up at 1, 2, 3 months of age. If babies reach the age of 1 month and weigh 9 pounds and still wait for a 2 a.m. feed, I think it's sensible for the parents to try to influence them to give it up. So apparently babies don't need night feeds, according to these books. We've just about to publish research showing strangely that if you follow the advice in these books, breastfeeding goes wrong. Strange. Gina Ford, be conscious that some babies think your sole purpose in life is to help him fall asleep. Yeah, it is. That's lovely. But I don't think that's what Gina means. During night feeds, try not to talk to your baby. So your little baby has woken up really needing some comfort. And you're meant to ignore them. You're not meant to look at them. You're not meant to talk to them. Now imagine that with an adult. Imagine your partner woke up in the middle of the night. So sad dad has woken up in the middle of the night. And you say, Steve, you're 38. You should be sleeping through the night. Off to the spare bedroom. I'm not looking at you. No, I'm not talking to you. We've been through this before. But would you treat an adult in the same way as many treat a baby? I have to read this one. I can't go anywhere without reading Tizzy. Tizzy is Australian, Save Our Sleep, interesting book. One aspect I considered is whether the quality of the mother's milk changes when she puts her baby on a routine, because cow's milk is close to human milk, which is why we drink it and feed it to our children. That's not true, but that's a whole other lecture. I decided to discuss it with various dairy farmers. Dairy farmers stick to strict routines in relation to their milking. Most will milk their cows at 5 a.m. and 3 p.m. every day. When I inquired why, it was explained to me that milking the cows at a set time every day meant their metabolism knew exactly when and how much milk to produce. The farmers said that if they milked their cows earlier or later than scheduled, the milk would not be of the highest quality or quantity. It's not such a leap to come to the conclusion that this might be the same for a breastfeeding mother's milk supply. Really? By the way, just in case you're confused, baby cow, 2 different things. Just when mothers have really been finished off, this lot come along. There's no logo on this. How many people know where it's from? Formula adverts, they're aimed at older babies, but kind of telling mothers that formula will make their babies happy. It will make them settle. These subliminal messages, well, not so subliminal really, these direct messages in them. Look, this baby's really happy because he's formula fed. And again, feed your baby formula and they'll sleep through the night. Disproven. Let us help you. Worried about breastfeeding, worried about your baby, call the formula helpline and they will help you. I would love to, maybe I shouldn't say this live, I would love to ring them up and see what advice that they gave. Saying that, do we even need to worry about the formula companies when Amazon will help us out? This is the offer on at the moment. When new parents join Prime, you get a £40 bundle. Randomly, they keep with this Nemo toy, apparently, that they really want you to have. But within it, you have a bottle, a dummy, just the pack that obviously every parent needs. No, they don't. Pushing the bottles on them. The question is, how long have I got left? 1 minute, right. What can we do? Going back to that change the conversation, it just comes back to this. We need to change the conversation around breastfeeding by stopping laying the responsibility of this major public health issue in the laps of individual women and acknowledging the role that politics and society has to play at every level. We must change the environment in which women breastfeed in. It's not just about telling them it's best. It's not just about telling them that they should. It's not just about enabling them to breastfeed in public. It's much, much deeper than that. And I have to jump through a few of the last few slides, but I'll just read this last one. We definitely need to be telling new mums about why breastfeeding is so good, but I also think this should be extended to everyone else. Everyone needs to know why breastfeeding is important for mums to stand a chance of making this work. We need to go to the dads. We need to go to the grandparents. We need to go to society and convince them, not just that breastfeeding is good, but to value new mothers better, to care for them, to go back to the time when they were looked after for a really good time after having a baby, to invest in that, to give them the support that they need. So I'm going to have to flip through some of those. This, one last thing. Have you seen a McCain advert at the moment? So the McCain advert, McCain family apparently, there's just all these series of clips of different families. So there's the stay-at-home mum, there's the working mum, and they're all really happy. And then there's an image of breastfeeding. I'm doing this on my own mum. Nice and dark. She's alone. Just this message that keeps coming out that you'll be lonely, you won't be cared for. Formula's the solution. So I'll leave you with that. With this, we need to convince society to value and care for our new mothers better. And I think if we did that, we'd see a huge increase in our breastfeeding rates. Just to leave the advert up at the end, Martin is over at Pinter and Martin's store with some of Sheena's books as well. But they are there for you to go and buy, and I'll be signing them later if anybody wants a copy.